Well, howdy, y'all. And I know what you're thinking. This isn't Outlaws at Thunder Junction. You're right. I don't know why I decided to do a Nikara and Yannik deck tech, in the middle of March of 2024. I mean, how many times have we actually seen these two commanders played? I have a love of niche commanders, so you're gonna get what you got. But yes, as you can tell, today we're doing Nikara and Yannik, which is a Abzan counter pairing. The goal here is to, obviously, as always, not try to be combo. We're not looking to be CDH. We're trying to play some powerful stuff, but we want to be fun at the same time. Nikara is a 3-mana, 2/2 menace. Whenever another creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it has a counter on it, you draw a card and you lose a life. And Yannik is a 4-mana, 3/3 vigilance. Whenever he enters the battlefield, exile another creature you control until Yannik leaves the battlefield. Then you get to distribute counters onto any number of creatures equal to that creature's power. So, pretty simple. Nikara lets us draw cards, and Yannik lets us put counters on stuff. Plus, Nikara, again, doesn't have to require things to die. They just gotta leave. So we get to play some really weird, fun, grindy Abzan shenanigans. So let's just get into it. Alrighty, well, let's start things off by going over our creatures that put counters on other creatures. First, we have Biophagus, which is a 1 and a green for a 1/3 creature human Tyranid wizard that taps to add 1 mana of any color. If this mana is spent to cast a creature spell, that creature enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. This guy generates a lot of value throughout the course of the game, is a super easy way to put counters on our creatures, and because he randomly has 3 toughness, he's able to survive that nice, weird incremental ping damage of 1 or 2 pretty easily. In addition, we have Orzhov Advocus, Forgotten Ancient, and Lenore Autumn Sovereign that all generate ways to put counters on our creatures, and either draws cards, protect their board states, or just gets really big really quickly. Plus, we have Basri's Lieutenant, which is a 3/4 vigilance protection for multicolored. When he enters the battlefield, puts a counter on a creature we control, and more importantly, whenever he or another creature we control dies, if it had a counter on it, it gets a 2/2 token with vigilance in its place, which is super great and is a great way to come back from a board wipe as we are a creature heavy deck. But I want to specifically highlight 3 ladies. We've got Archangel of Thune, Averbrook Caretaker, and Acropolis Regent. These are our 3 powerhouse ladies in terms of getting counters on our creatures. Starting with Archangel of Thune, probably the most well-known of the 3, a 3/4 flying lifelink. Whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. We have a lot of incremental life gain in this deck, and this card becomes a must-answer threat almost immediately. It's a great blocker, can swing our life total back in our favor if we've taken damage, and again, makes our whole board big very quickly. Averbrook Caretaker is a hexproof 4/4 with Daybound. At the beginning of combat on our turn, put 2 1/1 counters on another target creature you control. Many times I play Averbrook Caretaker and she can never leave the board, as that built-in hexproof makes her an amazing target for counters. Plus, if it ever becomes night, good luck to our enemies. Good luck. And lastly, Acropolis Regent, a 6/5 flyer. That reads, whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, put that many 1/1 counters on it. Acropolis Regent quickly becomes a counter doubler as our stuff going unanswered begins to get insane quickly. Acropolis Regent is typically a must-answer threat and very often will be, as she doesn't have that built-in hexproof like the Caretaker. But if Acropolis Regent can even just sit on the board for an attack rotation, she doesn't even have to attack, she just has to witness it. It can be stupid. And now that we know what's putting counters on our creatures, what creatures do we want to put those counters on? Esper Sentinel is always a great target for something like a 1/1 counter, as the bigger he gets, the more mana our opponents have to pay to deal with his tax, which typically means more card draw for us. Gyre Sage and Incubation Druid are amazing creatures, as the more counters they have, the more mana we get, at least in the case of Gyre Sage. Incubation Druid just needs 1, and he's able to tap for 3. How insane. Plus, Heron Blade Elite, a 3-mana 1/1 vigilance that reads whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Heron Blade Elite, and then you can tap it and add X mana of any one color where X is Heron Blade's power. We actually run a surprising amount of humans in this deck between our Commander, Esper, Heron Blade, the Caretaker, the Lieutenant, etc., etc. So this is able to grow pretty naturally on its own. Plus, if we just target it with counters ourselves, it grows and grows. Speaking of 2 humans we want to put counters on, Champion of Lambholt and Hopeful Initiate also reward us by either removing problematic artifacts and enchantments, or by giving our creatures basically unblockable. And also honorable mention here to Questing Beast. No particular reason to give it counters, it's just kind of amazing and does really big work in the deck, so I just needed to talk about him. Now that we know the overall strategy of the deck, we want to go ahead and look at some creatures and interactions that work a little bit more closely with Yannik and Nikara. Now, one thing that benefits us with Yannik is that he's able to disperse counters equal to a creature's power, so it's important that we're able to get high power creatures into play for low mana. So we have 2 that I want to highlight here: Serra Ascendant and Triumph of St. Catherine. I think everybody knows Serra Ascendant. It's pretty much an icon of the format, a 1 mana 6-drop that has lifelink and flying. Yeah, thank you. Yes, please. But Triumph of St. Catherine I specifically want to highlight, as this creature is super fun. While she could cost 5 mana, we're looking to get her off for the miracle cost of the 1 and the white for a 5/5 lifelink. Plus, whenever she dies, we exile it, and the top 6 cards of our library in a face-down pile. If we do shuffle it, put it on the back, on the top. This is really weird. I think it's a super weird card. I think it's super fun. I have a lot of fun playing this card. It's insanely high value if we're able to get it out for 2, play Yannik, disperse 5 counters, or we can just put counters on it. It is a 5/5 lifelink. Plus, again, it's able to keep coming back, as it's important that we have creatures that we have access to, as we are a creature-heavy deck, so board wipes and stuff can really slow us down. Now, one big benefit with Nikara is that the creature does not have to die. It just has to leave play, therefore creating the synergy with Yannik. So we also are running 2 other flicker effects in the deck, with Emil the Blessed and Sword of Hearth and Home. Emil the Blessed is a 4 mana 4/4 that lets us pay 3 to exile another target creature we control, and then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. And whenever another creature enters the battlefield under our control, we can pay a green or a white to put a counter on it. Granted, it also benefits if we have any unicorns, but spoiler alert, we do not have any other unicorns. And Sword of Hearth and Home will offer us some protection on our creatures, plus a mana ramp and a flicker effect. And because we have a minor flicker effect sub-theme, we have Guardian Project here to draw us cards whenever these creatures leave and come back, plus stuff like Solemn Simulacrum that can offer us mana ramp, Eternal Witness that can get stuff back from the graveyard as it comes back, and most importantly, Sister Hospitaller, a 6 mana 3/2 that reads, whenever she enters the battlefield, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You gain life equal to its mana value. This card goes crazy with Yannik. If we use Sister Hospitaller to resurrect Yannik, Yannik can then gain us 4 life because that's its mana value. We'll enter. We can exile the Sister Hospitaller under Yannik, disperse 3 counters, and now, when Yannik dies, Sister Hospitaller can come back, resurrect Yannik, flicker away the Sister Hospitaller, so on and so forth. While, of course, it can be dealt with if Yannik is exiled, it is a super, super fun and very annoying little trick that always gets you some respect at the table, because no one ever sees this coming, and it's super fun. But because our creatures are not just dying, they are leaving, that is why we are running the Resourceful Defense. Probably the best card in the deck. Resourceful Defense is a 3 mana enchantment that reads, whenever a permanent you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on target permanent you control. Or you can pay 5 and move any number of counters from target permanent you control to another target permanent you control. While we are, of course, running stuff like the Ozolith and Rayhan, those require the creatures to die. Hey y'all, Editor Slate here. No clue why I thought the Ozolith required creatures to die. The Ozolith is ridiculously busted. So pretend I didn't say that. Yeah, anyways, enjoy. Whereas again, Resourceful Defense just cares that they leave. Resourceful Defense, above all else, is insane in this deck. I'll flicker my 10/10, move these 8 counters to something else, draw a card. It is so good, so good, so good. So while we're moving counters, it's always nice to make more counters in the process. So of course we have things like Branching Evolution and Hardened Scales that put more counters on our creatures when we put counters on them. Plus Sword of Truth and Justice, which give equipped creature plus 2/2 and protection from white and blue. And whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on a creature you control, then proliferate. and Elspeth Resplendent, which is the only planeswalker in the deck, but it's the only planeswalker for a reason, as she lets us put all types of counters on our creatures, which notably Nikara doesn't even care if it's a 1/1 counter, it can be any type. Plus, if we need to just develop our board state, that -3 can come in big handy. Plus, we can manipulate that shield counter that something comes in with. I also want to go ahead and just honorable mention Bastion Protector, Together Forever, and Mother of Runes, as these are 3 pieces that help protect our board state in various ways, and Together Forever also lets us put some counters on stuff when it comes into play. Now I know what you're saying, so what, you've got all these big counters, these big creatures, who cares, what are you going to do with them? Well, if beating our opponent's face isn't enough, we have 2 backup little win conditions with Jared, Golgari Lichlord, and Felisa, Fang of Silverquill. Jared gets +1/1 for each creature card in our graveyard. Who really cares about that? We're mostly looking at that other ability right there in the middle that says pay a green, a black, and 1, sacrifice another creature. Each opponent loses life equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Yeah, I'll swing for my 20/20, then sacrifice it. Everybody loses 20. Oh, and it had counters on it, so now my Felisa is going to trigger. What does she do? Well, she's a 4-mana 3/2 flying mentor. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, create X tapped 2/1 white and black inkling creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of counters on it. Again, backup win condition. If I can't hit you on the ground for 20, can I hit you in the air for 22 twos? I think so. But again, Commander's not a game of solitaire, so unfortunately, y'all, we're gonna have to run some interaction. So what do we have to deal with the things that are gonna try to get in our way? Well, let's start with Damning Verdict, a 5-mana sorcery that destroys all creatures with no counters on them. And worry not, if our opponent has a less specific board wipe, we have Inspiring Call, to draw cards for each creature with a counter on it, and then giving all of our creatures indestructible till end of turn. Plus, if it gets really bad, we'll hit the Doom button with a Teferi's Protection to just get out of the way for a little bit. Plus, if there's anything problematic we need to handle at instant speed, we have a plethora of answers in Abzan, like Path to Exile, Despark, Anguished Unmaking, Generous Gift, Nature's Claim, and hey, Austere Command for the fun of it. And let's go ahead and wrap up this deck tech with a few honorable mentions of cards I just really wasn't sure where else to bring up. Starting with Evolutionary Leap and Ready and Willing, 2 cards that are super fun in this deck, as Evolutionary Leap can draw us cards with Nikara if the creatures we're sacrificing have counters. And Ready and Willing is just a very unexpected, unassuming card that nobody sees coming, that you can either use for less to just get one of the benefits, or you can invest in it for everything. Plus, Managorger Hydra, Scavenging Ooze, Morari's Wake. 3 just powerhouse cards that obviously need to be in here, and I just, wasn't sure where else to talk about them. That's it. You're at the end. Thank you for watching my Nikara and Yannik deck tech. If you enjoyed it, hey, give it a thumbs up. The deck link is in the description. And while you're there, you should maybe leave a comment, maybe subscribe. I don't know. I'm not you. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.